Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Deltana. This is their part number DSB66BB 3UNL. This is a really huge, super awesome hinge. That's what it looks like when it comes to you. It's wrapped up in this paper. And there's just simply something about the richness, the elegance of solid brass that is unmistakable in every regard. If you look at enough brass products, you are going to absolutely come to be able, I don't even want to touch it, it's so pretty, come to know when something is solid brass. And that's what this hinge is. This is a 6x6 hinge. And really what I mean to be saying about that is when you have solid brass and then you put a polish onto it, it's incredibly different than compared to when you have a piece of steel that you plate. Just really gorgeous. This is an unlacquered finish, and this client obviously is expecting, or this client obviously is desiring to have a fatiguing experience over time with this hinge. You do see a little bit of smudge down there, but that's just, I mean, that's literally the polish that they used to clean this hinge up. And as I just put my finger on it, I can wipe it off. Getting in there with a small buffing cloth is all that would happen. That shouldn't be there. I would hope that that little polish residue would not be on the hinge given the fact of what it is. But the truth of the matter is that that's all that is. Now, this is their DSB66BB. That means a number of things. It certainly means that it's made of solid brass. It certainly means that it is ball bearing and that it's heavy weight, meaning it's 205 thousandths of a leaf thickness thick, so it's a substantially heavy hinge in terms of its gauge. My caliper tells me it's 0.204, so pretty good tolerance on a piece of brass like this. Okay, these locations would be considered template for a 6x6 hinge. So if you're replacing something, you might want to confirm that the location of the hinges will match up with your preparation. And there is a link below this video to the template that will allow you to review that location, those locations for the screws. And speaking of the screws are most certainly included. They're going to be all wood screws. They are certainly going to be non-ferrous, and I'm going to argue that they're brass. The point of that is that you need to be mindful of the soft metal characteristic of solid brass screws, and absolutely pre-drill those holes correctly. I would pre-drill the hole, probably to the root size of the screw, not including the threads. I've seen it published that you want 80% of the root size pre-drilled for the holes, but with a softer base material, my experience tells me that the root diameter is probably going to be adequate. You want to do 90% of a root diameter. That's not going to matter. Using a wire size drill would be the most ideal application. So that link to the template will show you the location of all of the screw holes for the hinge. We'll show you all the location of the screw holes for the hinge. The only marks on this are just from my fingerprints, other than that little residue. So definitely confirm that. You don't want to unnecessarily have to find out at the last moment that you need to drill and dowel holes closed and drill new holes for your screws. So be mindful of that. Because it's heavyweight, that is certainly a 4-ball bearing sort of affair when it comes to a 5-knuckle hinge. Now this is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaf down in here and here, that when the leaves are brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. Okay. A very beautiful button style tip on this hinge. A 3-inch hinge. Where are you going to use, pardon me, a 6-inch tall, 6-inch wide hinge? This is a 6x6 hinge. It's important to note that the height is the first dimension. Well, it's 6x6, so you're not going to go wrong. But the truth of the matter is, if it was 6x4.5, which is a hinge that I happen to sell every once in a while, it's really important to know that you're dealing with a hinge that is 6-inch tall. The height is the first dimension. And this hinge weighs about 1.45 pound, by the way. So it's almost 1.5 pounds of solid brass. With the exception of the ball bearings in there, those will be steel. 6-inch tall, 6-inch wide. Where are you going to use a 6x6? Well, a 6-inch tall can be used in lots of instances, especially heavy doors. That 6x4.5 that I had just mentioned earlier is when we're hanging 300-pound doors that are 1 3/4 inch thick. And I have a client that uses those 1 3/4 inch, and they want really tall hinges because the door is really epically heavy because of applied wrought iron work that's done to the material. And it is known that for every 1/2 inch you increase in the hinge height, you substantially increase its ability to handle load. I think that I've read somewhere, and my memory might be flaky, but you might get a 20 or 25% weight capacity increase when you go from 4.5 to 5. And then 5 to 6 is probably going to be a third additional weight capacity. Now, more importantly, where will you use a 6-inch wide hinge? Well, obviously on doors that are very thick. The 6x6 I've sold to people on for 3-inch thick doors. It would certainly work on, put it this way, an 1 3/4 inch thick door would have a 4.5 inch wide hinge. And be mindful that when we're talking about this, we're talking about the total weight. So when you fold that hinge up, you're dealing with half of that dimension. 2 1/4 inch thick doors, a 5-inch, 5x5 or a 5-inch wide hinge would be really great. So for every 1/2 inch in hinge width that we increase, we've gone up a 1/2 inch in the door thickness as well. So, you know, a 6-inch wide hinge, if we're going to add 1 inch to the door thickness, a 3 1/4 inch thick door, yeah, sure, that would work. But a 3-inch door would be really good. You could certainly make this work on a 2.5 inch thick door, I suppose, because you know that your the layout of your hinge screws, while it's actually not very clear on the template where those secondary screw holes are, you know that it's 3/8 of an inch to the outside hole, but they're not giving us this one, and it looks like it's about 15/16 would be my guess. So from the edge of the hinge back to where the barrel is, you can see that 2.5 inch would be no problem really, and you could certainly forcibly fit this onto a thinner door. If you had a 1/4 inch back set, the distance from the edge of the door to the hinge that's not mortised, you could force this onto a 1 3/4 inch door. The truth of the matter is, though, that if I push that off to a 1/4 inch back set, you could make it fit onto an 1 3/4 inch thick door. But the truth of the matter is, if you're doing a 3-inch thick door, you're going to have a back set of about, 5/8, something in that range. You're doing a thicker door, you're going to increase that back set. But the point of the matter is, from the edge of that leaf to where that barrel starts, it's about 2.5. The point of the matter is you do not want excessive hardware hanging off the door. Okay, you would really like to have really not more than 3/8 of an inch of this hardware projecting off to the center line of the barrel. Having the hinge hang out a lot further than normal, maybe by design. You might have an unusual wall condition that the door needs to get out and around, in essence basically giving you a wide throw hinge sort of concept. But you want a happy medium between how much of the hinge projects off the face of the door and frame, based on thickness and based on clearance when the leaf turns around. And if you have a hallway where people are walking up and down, you sure don't want a lot of hardware hanging into the corridor. People will catch their clothing or hit their bodies on it. Those sorts of installations, customers will specifically ask for 1 3/4 thick doors, 4.5 inch tall and 4 inch wide. Very common on aluminum storefront material, that 4 inch wide, because it's bringing the vertical axis of pivoting in closer to the door, meaning there's less hardware hanging off. You don't want any more hanging off than necessary. And we've laid out that dimension, so you know where these holes are at, the inner holes. You know what that dimension is, and now you can basically decide. I would think that this would easily, if you're going to have 3 or 4 hinges on a door, you'd be pushing a 300-pound door range based on what I've seen in charts from manufacturers. So be mindful of your door weight. The problem with doors that heavy is there are generally not surface closers that are going to even remotely be able to close those doors. So if you have a self-closing requirement, you might want to rethink the design and go with pivots other than hinges. When you get really past about 225 pounds, I'm finding that overhead concealed closers and surface closers are at their envelope of what they were designed for. And there are workarounds. You know, you could install it and hope for the best. You can install 2 surface closers coupled together to give you, the ability to really pull the door closed. But you simply want to design it correctly to begin with. So this hinge is available in different finishes. Let's go over it. 3 UNL, polished brass without a lacquer, oil rubbed bronze, that'd be US 10B, US 15 satin nickel, US 15A antique nickel, US 26 polished chrome, 26D satin chrome, US 3 for polished solid brass, polished brass with a lacquer, US 5 for antique brass. And all of it, again, is a brass base material. So we've gone over where you're going to use it. We've gone over the dimensional properties of it. We've certainly reviewed the fact that I'm enamored with the hinge because it is a very good quality looking hinge. And I can also tell you that Deltana is a company that we've been working with for not several years, but a few years. They're relatively new on the scene, so to speak. What's remarkable about Deltana is the fact that they have come into the marketplace with hardware that they are certainly importing from overseas. That has, in many instances, become no longer available from domestic manufacturers. I have found that the quality of the Deltana product is very near the top when it comes to fit and finish on imported solid brass builders hardware. They are in that tier 1. I would not hesitate to consider using their product. Furthermore, about Deltana and all of the orders that we've sent their way, they are, as a rule, a well-oiled machine. They ship same, next day. There are instances when we have sent them orders that really eclipsed the amount of inventory that they would have on hand. We might need 1,200 of something when sales history tells them to keep 300. They are, in general, very predictable and reliable when it comes to getting that back order in from overseas. A very small amount of the time that doesn't go so smoothly, but they're good. They're on the spot and they've got a good quality product and they know their product. So I wouldn't hesitate. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Deltana products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on that Deltana? This is their DSB66BB and a US 3NL. It's polished brass, solid brass, no lacquer. Be mindful there's no lacquer on it. Or any other Deltana product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.